I want to update you on Von List's activities at the desert site in Egypt. After all,
what's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about the quote-unquote new mode in Cold War Zombies, a huge revelation for the story, and even a reveal for the next round-based map. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like, and make sure you have notifications on to stay up to date with everything going on in Cold War Year 2, Warzone, Modern Warfare 2, and any other future Call of Duty as well. Earlier this morning, I posted a video talking about Black Ops 2024. Yes, I'm not kidding. Somehow images did pop up for upcoming multiplayer maps in that upcoming Black Ops game, and that was found via the Warzone mobile files. It doesn't make any sense, but the account that posted those images has been suspended, but I'm sure you can find the images all over the internet via Twitter, Reddit, the works. Wouldn't be surprised if more info about not only Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 2024, but other Call of Duty projects also pop up over the next couple of weeks, so keep your eyes peeled here as I cover all the news here on the channel. But I want to start off with a really interesting claim from data miner Alex, who did actually report on Twitter a good, week ago, that the Chaos story is indeed coming back. And I'm like, wait a second, was that a teaser as to what can come next in terms of maps for Vanguard zombies? Are we actually going to get a Chaos map in that game? I highly doubt that. I do think that they name dropped Alistair in Shinonuma Reborn for a reason. I do think it's either to confirm that, yeah, Chaos was canon the entire time in this Dark Aether story and everything happened in the same timeline, or the fact that Tagler Toan might have merged the Chaos universe with the new Dark Aether one, or another possibility is that the Chaos storyline was originally just Dark Aether storyline, but they weren't going to reveal that until maybe 4 or 5 maps into the story, and they never got a chance to do that. So now the Dark Aether storyline is rolling with Cold War and Vanguard. Now is when they want to actually reveal what the true purpose of Chaos was this entire time. I went over more information about the Chaos story in a previous video that I have linked down below, but if this data miner has found something about Chaos coming back, now also keep in mind sometimes data miners come across information and references and strings in the files that are just out of date, or things that are there as placeholders don't actually mean anything in terms of future DLC content. So I'm unaware of what exactly was found in terms of Chaos. I know for a fact I'm not a data miner, scooper, or anything of that nature. I'm just reporting on the news for you guys, but there's a strong possibility that Craig Houston did reintroduce Chaos to us for a specific purpose. I know there was some backlash over on Twitter and other parts of the community where people are saying, oh, it doesn't make sense to cross over Chaos. Chaos was good on its own 2 feet and it should stay that way. But that's the thing, right? Maybe that was the intention at the time during Black Ops 4, but there might have been a plan that never got to be executed, which was to eventually turn Chaos into a Dark Aether story that went in a whole different direction with mythology that the original Aether story never went in. But they never got a chance to go that far, but now they will actually go that far with future Zombies experiences. So let's just wait and see what secrets and surprises Craig has up his sleeve. Now, Craig did wait until the right time to reintroduce us to Samantha and Eddie in the Cold War zombie story. He didn't just jump right into their return with Diminishing. He waited a little bit. So with that, I say, in Craig I trust, in Craig we trust. I think Craig definitely has a plan in terms of the Chaos story, and he won't be responsible for ruining whatever Chaos originally stood for. I think he has something planned, and not many of us out there can really wrap our minds around just yet, and let's keep it that way. Let's keep the element of surprise going for the future of zombies. But in terms of Cold War, we did get an update into zombies, which nobody out there really spoke about. It actually released this past Friday, and it released alongside the new Jack the Ripper bundle, which I covered in a previous video. But with zombies, we actually got the return of Diminishing Light, an LTM over at Onslaught. That's why I said it's a quote-unquote new mode for Cold War, because people on Xbox and PC are seeing this mode for the very first time. People on PlayStation, though, are seeing a return of the mode, which is awesome. And the rules of this mode are pretty simple. The orb will shrink during your surge, but you won't really notice that until some of the higher surges, right? When you first start your match off, and for the first couple of surges, the orb doesn't shrink that much, at least not enough to where it's noticeable. But on some of the higher surges, this could get difficult. I'll put some clips on screen so you can see. The entire orb will shrink, and you have to just try your best to survive, pop your ring of fire or something, and try to get through the surge as fast as you possibly can. And there is a challenge to replenish the orb 30 times to unlock a red AK-47 blueprint. Now, I'll put an image of the blueprint on screen so you can see. I think my progress is bugged for this challenge, though, because I've played quite a bit of this mode, and I'm stuck at 19 out of 30. Not sure what's going on with it. I'm doing something wrong, but to replenish the orb, I believe all you have to do is just shoot it during the surge, and it'll kind of slow down the orb itself from moving. the other theory I have about this challenge is that every time you complete a surge, that kind of replenishes the orb itself. If that's the case, then I don't know why I haven't made any progress on the actual challenge, as you can see. So I'm not sure what's going on with this challenge, but let me know what has worked for you guys down below in the comments, and if your progress tracker has moved at all. I'm just gonna safely assume it's the second option I said, which is that you just have to complete surges to burn through this challenge. That's what I'm thinking right now, but at least you guys can see the AK blueprint via an image that Treyarch posted in an old blog post a couple of months ago. Now, what's cool about Diminishing Light is that you can actually play a variety of different maps in the LTM, unlike previous Onslaught modes, which were only available on a select couple of maps, typically some of the launch ones, maybe a few DLC ones, but we have Deprogram, one of my fan favorites here in Cold War, that has Diminishing Light on it, which is awesome. I don't think Deprogram was out when Diminishing Light first released, so it's cool that they added support for that here on this experience. Now, what's really interesting though is that when we got the return of Mystery Munitions and then Onslaught Accelerated, both of those modes only lasted a good 20-ish days, maybe a tad more before they were replaced. And you can notice how long the mode is gonna last by taking a look at the timer at the main menu for how long you have left to complete the challenge to get that free blueprint. So if you look at Onslaught Diminishing Light, it says you have 60 days left, or around that by the time I'm recording this video, around, you know, a good 2 months to complete this challenge to get that red AK blueprint. Why you get longer to play Diminishing Light, but you didn't get that much time for Mystery Munitions and Accelerated is a big question mark to me. I'm not sure if something else is being planned, but if you look at when this actual mode is going to disappear, that's September 1st, so that should be deep into Season 5, if I'm not mistaken, and that'll also be when we end up seeing the return of Onslaught Elite, which is also a very fun mode where you get an Elite every single surge. But I would be surprised if after Onslaught Elite comes out, we don't get a Moshpit with all these LTMs in one. I mean, I've always been an advocate for bringing back LTMs, at least in a Moshpit form in the future. I mean, why waste the dev time and resources on really cool experiences on LTMs if they're only gonna last, you know, a good 20, 30 days? I can understand, you know, 60 days, that's cool, then get rid of it. But I get it, it's called limited time mode for a reason, but when it comes to Cold War Zombies, I mean, the more the merrier when it comes to modes. So at least bring them all back so everybody out there can have a choice of what they want to play for the foreseeable future and permanently. Now, what I would hope for is before Modern Warfare 2 comes out, we get the unreleased Onslaught maps also added to Cold War, although it's unlikely. I think if Cold War is going to get any more updates for the remainder of 2022, it's got to come down to just remastered multiplayer maps that are ported from BO4, or even just the remaining bundles, right? I don't think Zombies is getting any more attention in this game because they're fully focused on not only Vanguard, but then their future projects, which we talked a hell of a lot about here on the channel. Now, I also want to go over a really interesting revelation regarding the story, which kind of just got put together by the legend Kaljitsu after the launch of Shinonuma Reborn. And as you guys might remember, in the Cold War zombie story, via intel and then later dialogue in some of the DLC maps, we got to learn that there was a boy named Samuel who unfortunately died. And we know that Weaver and Samantha felt guilty about this because they actually couldn't save the boy on time as he burned in a building. Now, we then got to learn that Eddie the director kind of used Requiem as pawns to enact Operation Janus, kind of as revenge for what we think is the death of his son. It's heavily implied that Samuel is Eddie's son, and it's kind of ironic, right? Because Eddie and Samuel shared a connection in the old Aether story, so it's interesting how his son was also named Samuel here in the Dark Aether story. But we could definitely tell that Treyarch really wanted us to know that detail and wanted us to understand exactly what the motives were behind the director. But then Shinonuma Reborn throws some other curveballs at us with some other intel, which kind of gives us the hint that Mr. Peaks might not be Eddie's son after all, or maybe is just a part of him. So we were under the interpretation that Eddie's son might have turned into Mr. Peaks, or that they're bonded in some way. And we can see in the intel that Mr. Peaks keeps the boy safe in a dark place, they play hide and seek, they're best friends. And then we get some other intel through the Easter egg at Shinonuma that Cortifex and Syractus were married at one point and had a child, but the child was apparently killed, or that Cortifex sacrificed the child. We're not exactly sure on the details of how the child died, but it's heavily implied though that the child is dead, but then that Cortifex's child is also Mr. Peaks. So we're like, wait a second, how can Cortifex's child be Mr. Peaks, but then Eddie's son Samuel is also Mr. Peaks at the same time? What could have happened here? So with the intel suggesting that Mr. Peaks keeps the child safe, we can only assume that Eddie's son Samuel and Cortifex's son have bonded together in the form of Mr. Peaks, and they're actually the same person now. Is there a way to separate them in the future? But I'm curious if Cortifex's fate is just death by the end of Vanguard Zombie Cycle, considering the Forsaken's about to pop in and take control of all the gods and kind of consume all of them into one. I'm wondering what the future could hold for this plot point, and exactly what the future may hold for Samuel, who's within Mr. Peaks, but then we have Cortifex's son at the same time, which may even corrupt Samuel in the future as well. Will Eddie have to sacrifice this individual individual in the future if he gets a chance to. That's a big unknown. Now, I threw us off guard when we saw Mr. Peaks in Vanguard Zombies because this is 40 years before the events of Cold War, so we're like, wait a second, how could Mr. Peaks be here? Well, the only explanation is that, yeah, Mr. Peaks is Cortifex's son, and then when Samuel died, he somehow bonded with Mr. Peaks because it's heavily implied, like I said, that Mr. Peaks keeps Samuel safe. Now, we also get the impression that the son of Cortifex was unwanted by him, so if that's the case then, and he's neglected, then I'm wondering what that future holds for the plot point between Eddie and Samuel, right? How will Cortifex's son get in the way, and will he get in the way out of anger that Cortifex kind of neglected him, right? So Raxus got her memories back and then remembered that her son unfortunately had died or was no longer with them, so this is setting up a very, very juicy future for the zombie story, and it kind of makes the Vanguard prequel worth it. It gives us some more backstory and foundation for what is going to be explored again in the next game, which takes place presumably in the 90s. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk too much about the next round-based map, but in the Easter egg for Shido Numa, it is confirmed that we are going to Egypt next in the storyline. So I'm like, wait a second, Egypt? We were just there in Terra Maledicta, so what could that mean? Is the next map only going to be Terra Maledicta but round-based? That would probably piss some people off, and I don't know how they would even name the map at that point. How different would it be from the objective version that we just got a couple of months ago? I mean, my first impression of another map coming to Vanguard Zombies, which got leaked a couple of weeks ago, is that we're just going to get the Dark Aether region from Terra Maledicta expanded into a full-fledged map, but that's the Dark Aether, that's not Egypt. I mean, unless we get another map taking place in Egypt that is close to Terra Maledicta, then I'm not sure what this next map could be, but the community might not be happy about that. However, what I will say is the more the merrier when it comes to maps. I mean, if we end the Vanguard Zombie cycle off with 2 round-based maps and 2 objective-based maps, I think that's fair. At least that's something to kind of wrap up the cycle with. And Shido Numa Reborn, it was not actually the final map at all, which people out there still seem to believe, which is strange. But I'm definitely open to more Vanguard Zombies maps just to further this storyline, which is getting really, really spicy now, and also to get another main Easter egg to do, some more side quests to solve. I'm down for more Zombies content, considering the fact that Modern Warfare 2 will kind of be a gap year for Zombies anyway. We'll possibly have 2 gap years. If that 2023 project that's rumored by Treyarch, which is free to play, isn't Zombies related, then we're about to get 2 years off from Zombies for those out there that only care about that mode. So I guess appreciate what we can from Vanguard until the next Zombies game comes out from Treyarch at some point in the future. Now, I definitely seen this comment floating around a lot lately regarding Vanguard Zombies and how Cold War could have got a proper year 2 for Zombies instead, but here's the thing, right? If Vanguard didn't exist, or if Treyarch didn't have to help Sledgehammer with that game, I wonder if we would have got a proper Zombies year 2 to where in Cold War, we got a bunch of maps added in that took place during World War II or took place in the past and featured different weaponry, and then set up that prequel story that we have with Cortifex and the other gods. I wonder if that was the intention, or if Treyarch was like at the last minute, okay, we got to work on Vanguard, how do we tie this into Zombies? They ended up writing a prequel story to kind of help them set up the foundation for their next game. Or maybe, you know, if Vanguard didn't exist, Treyarch would have had to reintroduce these elements like the prequel and Cortifex in their next game, thus wasting time and not really furthering the plot along too much. I don't know what Treyarch's original plan was, but to me, in terms of story, it still worked out in the end. It's just in terms of gameplay that people out there are really upset with still, because Vanguard isn't the greatest game. Everybody's aware of that. I think a lot of these maps, right, Shido Numa Reborn or Terra Maledicta, they probably would have played even better in Cold War in terms of the mechanics and the upgrades and abilities we had in that game. But I think, at least in terms of story, Craig is probably still happy that he had a chance to kind of further this Dark Aether narrative along as much as possible. Now, I think what's fascinating about Egypt as well is that the future of the Chaos story was apparently going to bring us to the Pyramid of Giza, Library of Alexandria shortly after that, apparently the trenches of World War II. There's going to be some time traveling or time jumps going on in the Chaos story if the story ever continued. So I'm wondering if us going to Egypt again in the next round-based map will be tied to whatever scrap plans they had for that original Chaos map that was going to take place in Egypt as well, or if that's not related at all and we're just going to get Terra Maledicta turned into a round-based experience instead of an objective one. That's definitely a big unknown, but the fact they brought Chaos back definitely has me intrigued for what the future of Zombies is. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave all your thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the quote-unquote new mode in Cold War Zombies? What are your thoughts on the huge revelation regarding Mr. Peaks? And also, what are your thoughts on the next round-based map taking place in Egypt? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.